saw the Prophet praying. He inquired to what he was doing. And the Prophet ﷺ told him, Allah had blessed me with the nubuwwat, and presented Islam to him as well. Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu expressed a desire to consult his father. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, don't, yeah, if you don't want, don't. But don't talk to your father yet. Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu also hesitated. But Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu did not hesitate for a single moment, and he embraced Islam. And his Islam was so special. Not did he just accept Islam himself, just as the Prophet was given the responsibility of propagating and teach and spreading Islam, Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala automatically understood. And the first day he went out, and he brought some of his best friends like Usman radiallahu ta'ala, Abdurrahman ibn Auf, Hazrat Talha, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqas, and such people became Muslims at the hands of Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala. And when later on Allah commanded the Prophet ﷺ to preach openly, and the Prophet ﷺ started preaching at Mount Safa, when the number of Muslims then reached 40, it was Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala similarly from the Ummah who expressed a desire in front of the Prophet ﷺ to be allowed to preach Islam openly. And the first public sermon given by anyone from this Ummah was similarly by Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala. And then Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala stayed with the Prophet ﷺ throughout. And when eventually the Hijrat, as Maulana was saying as well, the Prophet ﷺ in his life as a Nabi, the changing phase in Makkah, the Muslims were going through hardship. And when enough was enough, Allah so decided that He wanted to bless His Prophet ﷺ with a better life, and then change the mode of Islam, or put Islam in a different gear, and then from where Islam would spread all over the world. Allah blessed His beloved Prophet ﷺ with Hijrat. And the Prophet ﷺ on his migration journey, Allah then intended, in this very delicate and subtle moment of the Prophet ﷺ's life, where he was wanted dead or alive, and the mushriks of Makkah had offered a reward of 100 camels for the capture of Rasulullah ﷺ, then the Prophet ﷺ was ordered by Allah to make Hijrat. And at that very crucial and critical juncture of his life, Allah commanded the Prophet ﷺ to make Hijrat with Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And this incident is mentioned in the Quran. And in this incident, Allah has regarded Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu as being a sincere companion. He is the only man who's been mentioned in the Quran as a companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. إِذْ يَقُولُ لِصَاحِبِهِ, when he said to his companion, La tahzan inna Allah ma'ana, don't you worry, Allah is with us. The Prophet didn't say Allah is with me, as Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was when he took Bani Israel out of Egypt, and then they came to the sea, and Firaun and his army were at the back, and the people thought, oh Musa, we are doomed. At least we were safe in our homes. Okay, we were enslaved, but at least we were safe. We had a place to stay. But now we are doomed. There's a sea at the front and Firaun's army in anger at the back. So we are doomed. But Musa alayhi salatu wasalam said, no, kalla, never. Inna ma'iya rabbi sayahdeen. My Lord is with me. My Lord is with me. But the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he didn't say. Musa alayhi salam was with his qawm in many hundreds of thousands. But here is the beloved Prophet of Allah, Rahmatul lil Alameen, Sayyid al-Mursaleen, Khatamun Nabiyyin, with only Abu Bakr by his side in the cave. The Prophet is not saying, Inna ma'iya Rabbi, Inna Allah ma'i. He said, no, O Abu Bakr, what do you think about the two with whom third is Allah? Inna Allah ma'ana, Allah is with us. Just as Allah is with Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, similarly Allah's divine and total and absolute unconditional help is with Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu as well. And when they came throughout their stay in Medina as well, there were many instances, many expeditions, many campaigns. And Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu was with the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam throughout, in Badr, in Uhud, in Khandaq, in Hunayn, and in conquest of Makkah, and then eventually in Tabuk, and throughout. And there was a few occasions, obviously the Prophet ﷺ knew eventually he also has to die. When the surah إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحُ وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا was revealed, in which Allah declared that the help of Allah has come. With the help of Allah has come victory, and now you have seen people enter the fold of Islam in their large numbers. And now what you should do, glorify your Lord and seek forgiveness from Him, as He is very appreciative and forgiving. Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala began to weep. Sahaba thought, this is good news from Allah. The help of Allah has come, Islam has spread, Allah has appreciated the service and the spread of Islam. So this is a very wonderful moment. Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala started weeping and realized, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's work and mission has been completed, and now it is only natural that Allah will call His beloved Prophet back, and we would miss the beloved Prophet of Allah. And so already his sight was on a different level. And the Prophet ﷺ, as the mission neared completion, on a number of occasions, the Prophet ﷺ had an opportunity to appoint successors, to appoint someone, or to appoint his representative. The Prophet said, Buni al-Islamu ala khamsin. Islam is based on 5 pillars. The first one is Shahadatu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. To believe and testify there is no God other than Allah, and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a servant and messenger. Secondly, to establish salat. Thirdly, to pay zakat. Fourthly, to fast in the month of Ramadan. And fifthly, to perform hajj if a person can afford to do so. Iman is personal. It's in a person's heart. It's not written upon a person's face how much iman a person has. Zakat is generally paid to Muslims and in secrecy. Fasting is similarly a personal and a secret matter between Allah and the person. Even if a person gets up for sahri in the morning, with the family he has a sahri, and he comes to the masjid and breaks his fast with the whole of the congregation, but whether he really was fasting or not is between him and Allah. And you know, when the time of salat comes and people perform wudu, for example, and everybody is making wudu, and as a part of performing wudu, everyone puts water in their mouths, but people allow the water to go into the mouth but not trickle down the throat. But if someone wanted, what could stop him from allowing that water to pass down his throat? So fasting is a personal affair between the person and Allah. But there are two out of these 5 pillars which are done in public. One is salat. Salat is encouraged to be performed in congregation, in the community, together. And hajj at even a bigger and a larger scale, not just in the community but with the whole of the ummah. Salat is prayed in every town, in every masjid 5 times a day. But hajj is performed once a year only in Makkah, and people have to come from every country or every town to perform hajj there together. After the conquest of Makkah, the Prophet ﷺ himself did not come to hajj. Makkah was conquered in Ramadan. 2 months later was the season of hajj. That year the Prophet ﷺ, neither did he send a delegation, nor did he come himself. But the following year, in the 9th year after Hijrah, the Prophet ﷺ himself did not accompany the delegation, but sent people to perform hajj, and appointed Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala as the Amir, as the leader over the procession, over the delegation, so that the people will perform hajj in his command and in his leadership, so that people will know that he is the man to represent the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Secondly, when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself did perform hajj, and he returned to Madinatul Munawwara at the end of the Hajj, the month of Muharram passed, then Safar passed, and towards the end of the month of Safar, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam fell ill. And in spite of his illness, he traveled around the houses of his wives, but eventually when weakness overpowered him and he felt unable to travel around, every house of his wives. He sought permission from all his wives and requested to be allowed to rest in the house of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. And because his hujra was right next to the masjid, and there was only a wall separating, or only a curtain which separated the masjid from the hujra of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would come and lead the people in salat. Thursday evening, Maghrib is the last salat which the Prophet himself led the people. Having led the Maghrib salat, he returned to his hujra to rest, but in Isha salat, he felt unwell or not strong enough to come to the masjid. And those who have visited Madinatul Munawwara and masjid of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, although presently the masjid has been extensively extended from all sides, but that initial space where the mosque of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to be, that is known as Riyadul Jannah. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, "Ma bayna bayti wa minbari rawdatun min Riyadil Jannah." The space between my house and my mimbar is a garden from the gardens of paradise. Ulama have given different explanation, saying the one meaning is it is actually a place from Jannah. Another is that it will be taken into Jannah. Others say it is as though it is in Jannah. Different explanation, but the Prophet ﷺ himself has regarded it as a garden from the gardens of paradise. And so it is right next to the Prophet ﷺ, his hujra to his masjid, and it's not even a large distance, but the Prophet ﷺ did not feel strong enough to come to the musalla to lead people in salat. And then he commanded the people, "Muru Aba Bakr an yusalli bin nas." He told the people, "You command Abu Bakr to lead you in salat." If the Prophet ﷺ had so wanted, he could have summoned Abu Bakr, requested Abu Bakr, called Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and asked the people to bring him to him so that he can personally tell him to lead people in salat, but he didn't do that. He said to the people, "You go and tell Abu Bakr that he should lead you in salat," hinting that afterwards you have to carry on the work of deen and you have to decide your own affairs. Wahi and me will not be around forever, and when you have to make your own decisions, then you have to know who to choose as your leader and who to appoint as your imam and as your ruler. So the Prophet ﷺ, he commanded the people to request Abu Bakr to come and lead them in salat. That was Thursday Isha salat. Then the whole of Friday, including Jummah salat. 5 prayers on Friday, 5 on Saturday, 5 on Sunday, including the Fajr of Monday morning, was led by Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was still alive and well enough and in his senses and conscious enough to know what's going on and aware of what is going on. And after Monday morning Fajr salat, Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala had 2 wives, and he wanted to go and visit his second wife on the outskirts of Medina. And he came to the Prophet ﷺ and sought permission, and seeing that the Prophet ﷺ appeared to be recovering and getting better, he thought it was a good opportunity, and the Prophet gave him permission, and he went to visit his other wife. And in the meantime, the Prophet ﷺ later on passed away in the mid-morning of Monday. So Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, while the Prophet was still alive, 17 prayers he led the people in salat, and appointed by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I was saying, although the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam categorically, explicitly, in plain, clear terms did not say openly to the people that after me appoint Abu Bakr, but in public, in the Hajj which was performed in the absence of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which the Prophet sent a delegation, he appointed Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala as the Amir. And then secondly, when he was still around in his presence and he had an opportunity to appoint an Imam for the people to lead them in Salat, Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala was chosen by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away, he was buried in that place, Rawdatun min Riyadil Jannah. Then Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala, after he passed away, he was also buried there. And there is a narration in which it is stated, when a person is conceived, and the mother of a person becomes expecting, and he becomes expectant, and then an angel is sent who mixes a small share of his grave, of the sand into the embryo or into